Well, hi everybody, and welcome to our Sacred Sorrows YouTube channel. And we are today meeting with Joell Mower for our episode 2 of our Friend to Friend series. And I'd like to introduce Joell. I met Joell on the very first retreat that we had for Sacred Sorrows in Los Altos, California, and that was in the spring of 2022. So it's been over a couple of years since I've known Joelle. She's really been a blessing in my life and in the lives of many women of Sacred Sorrow. So, Joelle, I'm really glad that you're here today. Thank you so much for agreeing for us to have a chat.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Joelle, you are a woman of the word and a woman of wisdom and a woman of God and a woman who has walked through quite a journey. And just a few days ago, you recognized the 12-year anniversary since you lost your son, Dominic. So I am
Yeah.
deeply sorry for that. And I think I'd like to start by asking you today, here you are at it's been 12 years, and I wonder if you can paint a little bit of some practical hope for women who aren't as far along since their loss, and maybe tell them a little bit about maybe how they will eventually get to the point where you are in your loss.
Um, mm, wow, where to start with that? So I'll go back to how I was feeling 12 years ago. Um, I felt like my world had stopped. And of course, the rest of the world kept going. Um, I also didn't really care if I lived or died. I wouldn't do anything to harm myself. And at the same time, like I noticed I was almost in an accident and that I was like, well, okay, if that happens. And there was a time that I just asked God, I said, this hurts too bad. Do I have to keep going? Can I just go see Dominic now? Do I have to keep going? And, but I have a wonderful husband. We just celebrated our 47th wedding anniversary yesterday. And I have a daughter who and I have two granddaughters and a son-in-law. So, I have other people that are in my life who depend on me and who um it was important for me to get to the place where I could recognize that. I know my daughter said something to me one time. She said, Mom, I'm still here. And it was like, bong, it was like, aha, wow. I needed to hear that because it was so easy just to get into my own pain and to imagine, because it wasn't true. So it was my imagination, my reality at that time, that no one had ever felt the way I had. No one else was having the pain that I was having. And it was pretty isolating. It was pretty isolating. And then we went to my husband and I went to it was called Grief Share,
Mhm,
and it was at one of the local churches. And
mhm.
there were 8 other couples who had lost children in that group. And that was eye-opening for me. That was the first time I was really able to look out and to see other people experiencing similar pain. None of them are ever exactly the same, but who had been in the same situation. And that really that was a turning point for me
Mhm.
because I was able to come outside of myself and to see that there are other people out there. There are, and will forever be,
Yeah.
other moms who lose their children,
Mhm.
and for all different reasons.
Wow.
So, so that
Okay.
was. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go.
No, 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 no. I feel like, you just there's so much that you just said there that is so, rich, and we could go in so many directions from that. But the first thing I wanna thank you for is your vulnerability right off the bat, sharing that you just really didn't wanna be here, and I know that all grieving moms that we know, felt that same way in the beginning, maybe even sometimes now, that we would just rather be with our children now. And so thank you so much for sharing about that, because here you are and you have continued in this transformation. You're not the woman that you were then,
That's
and
right.
you've learned and recognized so much about your journey. I like what you said about your daughter saying, "Mom, I'm still here." And I think that that is a whole other topic that we could talk about, is the relationships with our children who are still alive, and all the complications around that. I know I'm having walking through a lot of complications that I trust that are going to be worked out, but it's really challenging. But I think one thing that happened for you that was great that doesn't happen for a lot of grieving moms is that I know that Grief Share is a terrific group and I've heard about that, but I
Mhm.
think that you were really touched in a way, because what happened for you is that you did meet couples that had lost children, and a lot of these standard grief groups, um, that aren't specifically for grieving moms, we meet people who have lost, spouses or parents, and who have had losses that are more in the natural order than
Mhm.
losses like ours. So it seems like, you connecting with people that had lost children very early in your journey was very helpful. Kind of like similar to Sacred Sorrows, in that we just work with grieving moms and grieving grandmothers. So, I think you can speak to that particular type of loss. And so when you moved into the world of Sacred Sorrows, then that was kind of a continuation of Grief Share in a way for you, wasn't it?
Exactly.
So tell us
Exactly.
about that.
Well, it's a way, and it was also a way to, the two big items that I touched on were the part of not wanting to be here because the pain was so great, and then the other part of the isolation of being on my own and how that really didn't serve me. But I think the other part that I learned in Grief Share that was really important is that, just went away. That's another thing that still happens. um, that the fuzzy brain that comes with that. Um, but that's really important, is that we will have what they call a new normal.
Mm,
And I remember being so like angry about that when they said new normal, because I just felt like nothing's ever going to be normal again. I don't know how you can say there's going to be something normal. And after all these years, I have recognized what my new normal is. And I also have recognized that it's really a choice, you know. I
Well,
can
tell us about that, the choice and your new normal, and go ahead and just feel like you can share wherever the spirit leads you in that regard.
well, in the there were many days that I felt like I just wanted to stay under my covers. I wanted to not get up. I wanted to just not interact, all of those things. And I made the choice to get up.
Mm.
And I did that with gratitude. The gratitude helped me. It's like, okay, I'm physically able to get out of bed. Look at this. I have a wonderful warm shower waiting for me. Here's a cup of coffee. I mean, it went from there to, I look over and, okay, I was fortunate that I had a partner to walk through this with, and that he was still there, because, I understand that that doesn't always happen in especially our situation. So now I know my and the new normal doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, but it's a process based on what we decide. And it doesn't mean that sometimes I don't still stay under the covers, because I just don't wanna face stuff. I don't wanna but and there are days when I choose to get up and to make those hard choices, and I do it. I do a lot of it for Dominic because I know he would not want that for me. He would want me to continue to thrive and to grow and hopefully make a difference for some people because of what we've gone through, because that's who he was. He was a person that would do that, and knowing that he's at peace helps me be at peace. So to be able to, again, come out of myself, so I'm not thinking about only me, that I'm thinking about someone else, that really made a huge difference for me. And now my new normal is that I'm always sad on some level. I mean, there's a part of me that will always be sad, and I can choose joy. I can move forward, and when joy happens, I can say, "Yeah, let's have it," because not choosing joy doesn't honor my son. Sometimes we think it's not okay for us to be happy
Right.
because that's not honoring the person who was not there. But if we're honest with ourselves and we know that's not what that person wants for us.
Yeah.
So all of those things, and I don't know if this is making any sense because I'm just kind of free thinking.
Mhm.
um and I cry very easily. I mean, I've always been a very empathic person, but
Mm.
my tears come up at the drop of a hat, and that's part of my new normal. But I'm claiming them. I'm claiming them
Yes,
because
yes, and he collects them all in a bottle as it says for those of us who may be Christian and read scripture, it says that our tears are so precious to God that he collects them in a bottle. So yes, claim those tears because they are, and and they're healing, right? I mean, like there are studies that these kind of tears like have toxins in them that are released, so I love that you claim them. And I love what you're saying about you. There will be a part of you that will always be sad. Like I resonate with that. Like I carry a sadness in my heart that is just a low level sadness, but that low level sadness has broken me open in a way. And I know you know what I'm talking about, that I then can carry more joy.
that's
Right. And I know when Khalil Gibran, the book, The Prophet that we were all reading in the 70s or maybe even the 60s, he said that, joy and sadness are each side of one coin, and that the more we experience sadness, the more that we can experience the depth of joy. Okay, did we want that? Could we have lived the rest of our lives without that? Yes, but since our we got the sadness, there is a gift in the depth of the type of joy we can experience. So
absolutely, because we know both sides. It's almost like bookends. Well, I
yes,
guess that's the same as saying you're the end of both sides of a coin. It's like,
yeah,
we've gone to one side as far as you can go, or it seems like that. And
yeah,
then we can also, if we choose to, go to because they're both true. I
right.
realize I can have joy and sadness at the same time.
Yes, that whole both and instead of either or is just the way that our lives are now, which makes us have a depth and a breadth to our new normal
Yep,
that that all of us as grieving mothers can understand
that's
from each
right.
other. A transformation happens that we didn't want, but um, here we are. So let's go back a bit because I want to move into the transformation piece because your story is full of the transformation of forgiveness and mercy and a lot there. So I want to just kind of go back to your journey. In your particular case, Dominic's death was very tragic and very violent, and it created trauma, PTSD, and a lot of complicated things that you had to work through to get where you are today. So, if you want to tell us a little bit about how that impacted your specific journey, that I'm open to hearing what you have to say there.
Um, wow, where to start? Well, I can say as far as a transformation that now instead of saying, God, can't you just take me now? Now I'm doing different kinds of negotiations with him. Now I'm saying, can I just have 10 more years? I'd
Mm.
love to see my granddaughters get married and see grandchildren, all of that. So to me, I use that as a litmus test, I guess, for where I am in my healing, where, and how to have that joy. And I can say that I don't know that I would be there if I hadn't chosen, here's another choice, if I hadn't chosen to forgive the person who killed our son. And that was God, that was grace, that was not me. That well, I did say yes, but that was a gift from absolutely a gift from him.
Mm.
The other thing that's happened is I've had what Dominic used to call the 2-foot drop from your head to your heart. He used to say, "Oh, mom, they just haven't had the 2-foot drop. They know it here, but they don't know it here yet." And we have a lot of Dominisms. He was so wise in so many ways. And so I have always grown up and been taught that and believed that God loves me, that he wants only good for me, that he is always with me. He will never leave me. He will always give me what I need. I've always believed that, but it was here. Now I've had the 2-foot drop and it is here. I mean, like it's never, ever, ever, ever been before. I have so much trust, and I know because of the gifts that he's given me along the way, because of the things that he's revealed to me along the way, because of the blessings, and I guess that's the same as gifts, but I think they're a little bit different, that have the spiritual um, part of it that has happened. Um, I have a, I can't help but think what it would be like if I had not chosen to forgive the person who killed Dominic.
Mm.
And we have a relationship where
I'm going to ask you about that in a second. I'm going to stop you for a minute. So I know that because I really want to address this.
Mhm.
Um, First of all, I had to in my journey with my loss of Chad, when he died, there was a house full of other people, and Chad died when these other people were in the house, and I had to that night come to terms with how were there people there and like no one checked on Chad. Like I wanted, my human reaction was that I wanted to blame right off the bat. Like, and the second I had that thought, another thought popped into my head, and it was like, stop, this will not serve you. Um, the people here who are going to have to like journey through the rest of their lives with this experience. And I felt mercy about that. I didn't feel like vengeful, like I wanted them to suffer from having to deal with that for their lives. I just knew that it was going to be something they were going to have to carry, and that would be heavy enough for them. And so I thought, it's not going to serve me to go to this place. I just have to stay focused in the light and in the Lord to the best way that I could. And so, um, for women that have lost children in very sudden and tragic and violent ways, this message from you is going to be hard to hear, especially in the beginning. This message of how could you possibly be using the word blessings in any way, and how could you possibly be saying that are starting, you've experienced mercy and forgiveness. Like, I can't even listen to this anymore. That's how some people, especially in their first year or two or wherever they are spiritually, could be longer, could be like could have turned us off by now, right? So I'm asking you, if you're listening and you're in this situation, keep listening. Take a
Yeah.
deep breath. So I'm gonna ask you, like, I know this was incremental for you. Now, I'm sure that there was grace, like I experienced grace right off the bat, and that was a blessing and a gift, and I didn't make that happen. And I'm sure your story has a lot of grace in it as well. But incrementally, how can someone who has experienced this kind of a violent loss take the one baby step to move into a place of mercy? Like, do you have any words of wisdom for someone that maybe didn't get that dose of Holy Spirit or dose of mercy that you may have got right off the bat? Like, can you share a little like of encouragement for them? Because it may be a longer journey for them. Does
I
that make
think
any sense?
I think in real life, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying mine wasn't in real life, but I mean, it was in my life, right?
Mhm.
But I think it's more common that that doesn't happen right away. It's more common because forgiveness and mercy are such a process. Um, what I would for me, I would say the first thing would be to ask for it. Ask for it because faith is a gift. Being able to have that if you want it. Um, there's something in the 12-step program where they say, Lord, help me want to want. So that would be, I think, probably one of the first things is to say, even if you don't feel it, help me to want to do this. Help me to do it because I truly believe that it is not something that we can do on our own.
Right.
You
Right.
know, they always say God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and I don't believe that for 1 second.
Right. That's a lie.
It's a huge
And it
lie.
is
It's a
not
huge
in the Bible
Yeah,
anywhere, you know?
well, it's a huge lie
Yes.
because we get more things that we can handle all the time, right and left, and then when something like this happens, it's like, "There's no way that I could handle this on my own and get to a place where I can experience joy again, where I can forgive someone." And the thing about forgiveness is people somehow, I've done a lot of studying on it because that's just how I do things. I like to know things. So, one of the things that they say is if you forgive someone, it does not mean that you think what they did is okay.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
does not mean that you have to let go of your feelings about it. It does not mean you ever have to speak to them again. It does not mean that they have to say they're sorry because it's really not about them at all. It's about us. And it's about us making the choice to move forward in our life, to take back our, I don't know, I guess power, to take back our, our
Liberty maybe,
lives.
or like our freedom or our liberty,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and not to be held hostage,
Yeah.
because that is exactly what non-forgiveness does. It holds us hostage, and it keeps us from moving on, and it keeps us from living our full life that our child would want us to have. It gets in our way. So if there can be somehow, as I said, just taking the baby steps, ask for it because it is a gift. It was a gift. And I had this might be a weird experience that I'd like to share that I don't know if everybody can get behind, but we went to the shop where Don was killed, and I smelled his cologne, and I
Mhm.
just lost it. I just lost it. And I went into the truck, and this might be part of PTSD or something different, I don't know,
Mhm.
but I could see myself. I was outside of myself,
Oh,
and
yeah. They're
I could
dissociated. Yeah.
so I could see myself having this kind of grief, and what came to me was, "That's not sustainable. That kind of grief is not sustainable. And so I just kind of watched, and pretty soon it passed. And that was a huge lesson for me because I likened it to being in labor. You know,
Mm, mhm,
when we're in labor with these children that
mm.
we've now lost, it's like, okay, we're in labor and we're like, "Oh my gosh." I remember telling, because I had natural childbirth, it was those days, and I remember telling my husband, "I wanna go home," and he laughed, and I was serious. I was like, "No, that is not funny. I don't wanna do this anymore." Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't
Yeah.
want, and then you'd have that moment of, in between, and then you'd have another contraction. And so that's how I kind of describe grief ambushes when they come. And it could be because of a song, it could be because you see somebody that looks like your child, it could be who knows why, but or food,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, those grief ambushes that come, and that pain that is not sustainable, I recognize when it comes, I'm like, okay, here you are, do your thing. And I know that it won't be forever. And
Mm.
I can choose to say, okay, come on, and claim it. Again, there's that word, claim it, and then move forward. And I really believe that and I'm not saying this like everyone can do it or do it all the time. Certainly, I can't don't do it all the time in a perfect world. I think that would bring us to a place of healing also. Um, so I don't know. Does any of that make sense?
Yes, very much so, especially this concept of laboring in our grief the way we labored in childbirth. But, there's also that phrase that this too shall pass. And, um, I remember thinking that my grief was going to be linear,
Mm,
that, Chad died and now this happened to me and now I have to figure out how to fix it. Like, because there was always, like, okay, this problem happened. Now get some therapy. Like in my past, that's how it would work. The problem happened, get some therapy, take care of it, but follow the steps.
yeah.
Um, and then as the time went on, um, time I would start not having these grief meltdowns for a certain amount of time. Some time would go where I wouldn't have a meltdown, and I thought, "Oh, I'm getting better." And then out of nowhere, like what you said, a song, a smell, seeing someone that looked like him would then, or something very small, right, would happen, and then I would have that meltdown again, and I was like, I thought I was getting better. And that's when I realized that it's not linear and that these waves happen, but like you said, it's like a contraction. So bring it on, claim it, go through it, and you get to the other side of it. And so that did make sense to me very much. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
It sounds
Okay.
sounds easy, Rita. I just wanna make sure that I'm not making it sound like you said, "You do this, you do this." It's not like, "Oh, yeah, this is all you do," and then but it's not it's
Nothing like that.
no, it's hard, it's sound anyway, I just
No,
wanted
I thought it was like you do this, you do this, you do this. And then I realized, oh, it's nothing like that. There is no map. Like, I felt like, I mean, what I guess I didn't clarify myself because that is not how this works. Um, I thought that's how it worked, and that's how I went about it in the beginning. And then I remember thinking, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to be putting together a puzzle, and I don't have the picture of what the puzzle's supposed to look like.
Mhm, mhm.
That's what it really feels like, in a wilderness journey.
Well,
Uh,
and you've never done it before, right?
well, yeah, right.
Nothing even like yeah,
Right,
there's nothing like it.
right. Um, I sigh because that's just so true. So, okay, so Joelle, so I know that you have been interviewed in other places, and I'm gonna put a link to that podcast that you were interviewed that you shared with me a couple years ago, along with this, so people can really hear that whole story of your journey of forgiveness. Like, so, I know that I want people to be able to hear your story there. But I kind of want to bring us to this place where we are now. Um, and the fact that you have recently received a letter that I think is important for you to tell us whatever you want to tell us a little bit about it. So if you could give us a little truncated version of like how you got from there to this letter, um, that would be helpful. And so I'm gonna leave that to you to definitely fill us in the blanks,
Mm.
but just not all of the steps of the story just because of
I was
time,
just gonna
because
say,
we have like a lot of time. But I will say a lot of people have to deal people who are dealing with violent deaths often get stuck in this whole court and legal proceedings and how difficult that is. So definitely, please, you can touch on that. But then let's get to where we are today and the hope of where you're at, just this recent hopeful sign that you've had that I don't know about yet, but I know I will soon. So I'd like you
well,
to
and
share
I
that.
think that would be because hope is, I mean, giving up hope is slamming the door in God's face.
Yeah.
If you give up hope, it's saying to me, it's saying, I don't believe you will help me. I don't believe you can help me. I don't believe you will help me. All of those things. So hope is something, is such a strong word for me. And it's such a huge part of how I move through life. Always with hope. So, when let me see. So if we started and truncated, by the way, that's not really part of my vocabulary. I'm gonna try. I
I
know.
know that, but I don't want to have to,
No,
cut
you don't
you
want to have to
off.
say stop talking. So anyway, I'm gonna do
I
my
want
best.
to, but I really want to get us to this point where we are today, right?
Yes,
Because I think it's
absolutely.
important. So,
Well,
yeah.
and that's where the hope is. That's
Yeah.
that's where the hope is to know that we will get to a place where instead of saying, "Take me," we can say, "Hey, can I be here a little bit longer because I'd like to have this experience," or, you know, "I'd like to see Dominic's place up and running. I'd like to see all that done," and I like, all those things.
Yes.
Um, so when I'll just start with the preliminary trial. And there was a young woman who was also with Dom at that time, so she was the witness, and that's how they found him and all of that. So one and then they went through and they said, "Yep, there's enough that we can take him to, the real jury trial." He decided that he would take a plea bargain instead, and it was 64 years to life. And we were so relieved because we did not want to go through a public thing if we didn't have to, because
Mhm.
the little short one was painful enough. We didn't want to do it again, and we didn't want to do it in the public eye. So we were grateful for that. Then when you have something like that, they have a impact statement that we get to share with the person because we were victims. And so I wasn't sure at all what to say, but I knew, because I'd been given that gift of forgiveness, I knew that I wanted it to be something that God would want him to know. So the night before I said a prayer, I said, "Okay, what do you want me to say to him?" And as part of the most specific part of it was that I told him, it was like we were the only two in the courtroom. And I told him I was praying for him before I even knew who he was. And then I said, "I believe that God is using me to tell him how much he loves him." And that's when he cried. That's the first time he showed any kind of emotion at all. And that to me speaks to the power of mercy and forgiveness, which are sometimes thought to be weaknesses, but it speaks to the strength of them. And since then, he and I have been writing letters back and forth. And in September of 2023, I actually went to visit him in prison. That was the first time that I had done this, during this time. And it was interesting because when I think of, God did not cause Dominic's death. Dominic's actions, his lifestyle, the things he did, he suffered from the disease of addiction, unfortunately, and we thought he was doing well, and he wasn't at that time. So God did not cause Dominic's death, but he allowed it. He didn't stop it. Um, so when I spoke to my person, I went into the jail or the prison, and there were guys, and this just shows how a ripple effect of how something like this can spread. So and I guess why it's worth it to do it, because when I went in there, the guys were saying, who are you visiting? And I told them, and they said, well, family member, friend, what, and I was like, uh, none of those really fit. And I just said, well, he's a person who killed my son. And they just kind of went, and then they went, okay. And they started doing their thing. But I thought, it's real. That's the truth. So then I went in and I was waiting, and he came out. And while I was waiting, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to shake his hand? What's going to happen? And he came out and he just put his arms out, and we gave each other a hug. It was incredible. And we talked, and he said that he believed that I forgave him, but he didn't understand it. And he said the first 2 years he stayed clean and sober, because when you get to prison, you can make a choice. Do you want to go your old life, or do you want to start doing other things? But you pretty much have to make that choice when you get there, at least most of the time.
Okay.
So then he said he stayed clean and sober to honor me and to honor our family.
Wow.
And he said, but it took a couple of years before he recognized that there was something besides my forgiveness and the two of us and all the people that he has touched while he's been in prison. So he's been taking classes to be a counselor so he can help other people in prison. He's training service dogs.
Wow.
He's doing so many wonderful things. And
And being a witness to so many others too, right?
yes. And that's kind of what I meant when every single thing that happens builds on that some way, somehow, and it makes a difference. So it really kind of, it sounds dramatic to me to say it, but it changes the world. It changes some people's world by
Changes the
making
world, which changes
making
the world.
yeah, by
Yeah.
making one choice. So and there was some issue, I'm not going to go into that detail, but there were some things I struggled with after meeting with him. And I also called his mom, because he told me, about that. And I talked with her a little bit, and there were some things I struggled with there. So I didn't write him back for a while, just kind of praying about it, dealing with it. And then, so again, I don't want to dwell on that, but I also want to say that just because I forgave him, now everything's hunky-dory and smooth, and there are no issues, no challenges, no anything like that. But it
Right.
certainly changes the way that I move forward with it.
Right.
So on he writes me a letter every July 25th. I receive a letter from him, because
Which is the anniversary of Dom's death.
right. And I wrote him a letter once, and I called it Our Day. And he seemed to like that. I said, it's our day. It's your day, my day, Dominic's day. We are forever connected. We are forever. That will never change. And in this letter, he was the most vulnerable that he ever has been, this last one. And I believe it's because we met in person. You know, we have a different kind of relationship now. It's just not on paper, it's face to face.
Mm.
And he was moved, he's in so it's closer. So if I want to go and see him, he was hoping that I would. He didn't know why he didn't hear from me. He didn't know if it was because I had some kind of closure and I didn't need to see him anymore, if I was upset, you know, whatever. But I won't go into all the details because I don't know. How's your time going, Rita? I want to check in.
I think we're still good, Joelle.
Are
So,
we?
and I
Okay.
know you're getting closer to, what you're gonna
Well,
share about how this continues, the story continues, and it's deeply moving. And I thank you for sharing this.
you're welcome. You're welcome. It's, you know, it's my life.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
you know, every day I pray for him.
Mhm.
I pray for him and told him, I said, I want you to be in heaven because that's what God wants. I want what God wants.
Mm.
It's not all about me. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned in this whole thing. There are so many other things. Yes, I'm important. Yes, I'm right here, but I'm such a teeny piece in this whole big plan. And
Yes.
it's just been really enlightening to me. But
Well, I think one thing that really strikes me is your acceptance that, like all of us, Dominant wasn't perfect. And that uh there there like you explained so beautifully, that God certainly didn't take him, but he allowed it, for this to happen, and that God received him, right? He didn't take him, but he received him. But um there are positions that our children sometimes have put themselves in because of, addiction and illness and disease, and our human nature that
right.
gets us into places where now us as mothers are dealing with the consequences of some of that.
Mhm.
And so for you to be able to really be real about what brought you to this place, and then look at it with this eye of your heart, is so profound. And I think it points back to the place of where I told you there are mothers that don't want to hear this message, right? And I think sometimes the more we can open up to the fact that we're all humans and humans make mistakes, and,
Yeah.
things like this unfortunately happen, then we can come to a place of acceptance. And I think it's easier to move into the bigger world of the mystery of
Mhm.
grace.
And you know, something that you said just came to me, and it has to do, it's also mentioned in letter here, is forgiving ourselves. Because when you say about us being so human, we mothers are also so human. And what I know is that I never, ever, ever in my whole life did anything that I thought would hurt Dominic. Never. I not know things all the time? Did
Mhm.
I move forward with what I knew at the time, and have I learned more since then? Yeah, but I don't like to use the word should, I'm gonna say will. Will and have I, to the best of my ability, with God's help, of course, forgiven myself for what I didn't know and for the things that I did that may have hurt him somehow, some way? Yeah, I have, and I continue to work on that because those things are revealed to me all the time. "Oh, yeah, I did that. I don't know if that was good." But, you know, Dominic did give me a great gift one time because he was clean and sober, and I asked him, I said, "So," because I was looking at myself, I think we do that, you know, it's like,
Oh,
what did we do to cause this?
right.
What was our part in it, you know? And
Oh, yeah,
I
we beat ourselves
yeah, yeah, we do.
continually for that, which is a whole other conversation, right? But yes, so he taught you something. I'll bring you
So
back.
and I'll make this, because I know I'm kind of going out here, but I think it's important. I think I just feel like it's important to say, and that is that he said to me, he said, he looked at me and he said, well, I asked him, I said, when you grew up, did you feel like supported by us? Did you feel like we were there for you? Did you, because I worked a lot, I love my job. And so I was gone and then, this and that. And, we ask ourselves, if I didn't do this, if I, whatever. And he just looked at me and he went, oh my gosh, mom. He said, please don't blame yourself. He said, I don't know why I made the choices that I made, but they were my choices. He said it had nothing to do with you. I knew you guys were there. You supported me in everywhere that you can. I know that you love me. He said it wasn't about you. Those were my choices that I made, and that was the best gift he ever could have given me.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I had a similar experience with Chad in different ways about him, like, letting me off the hook before he had even died, and it was a gift. For those mothers that are listening that you wish you maybe had that, I just wanna assure you, and I know that Joelle could say the same, trust that your children really believed that you did your best and that they loved you and that they absolutely would not be blaming you right now, that they're not blaming you, that they
Yep.
they are in a place that they can't even fathom what the words blame and regret and all of those things even mean. Like, they're in a place where it's pure love and you are surrounded and embraced in your child's love, whether or not they shared these kind of words with you while they were alive. Just, I want you to trust in that. And I know that Joelle does as well, for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely, and I didn't finish that sentence, but that's what I would say. That's why I felt it just felt so important to say that, um, because they know that we love them. They know that we did everything we can. Sometimes if they're in their disease or wherever they are, they might even say things that don't point to that, and that doesn't mean that they don't know. On some level, if they get to that place of honesty,
Yeah.
that the accountability is there, you know, for
Yeah.
them, because there are all kinds of choices people make all the time.
Yes. So, this letter that you recently received, would you like to share anything of that? Because this really does take us to where you are now and in this journey. And if you'd like to hold off on that for a minute, because I do want to ask you, like, where Sacred Sorrow's journey kind of fit into this for you. I know that's part now of your story.
Mhm.
Um, and if that played a part for you to get to this place where you are
Oh,
now,
that was Sacred Sorrows has been so wonderful, similar to my experience or our experience, of going to grief share, being about around other people who really know. I mean, they know, speaking of knowing on such a deep level, what it means to say, you know, our son or our daughter is no longer with us in the physical sense, and all of the ways that that can happen. Um, and Sacred Sorrows has just been such a place
Mm,
safe place with women of all socioeconomic. There are no socioeconomic boundaries with this. There aren't, that I've experienced anyway. For some women are introverts, some are extroverts, some are, and that they are there with their whole heart, their whole soul, their whole being when they're there, because it's so easy. Rita, the way have designed it is so easy. If there's anything easy about this, I say that word, I'm like, is that really right? but it makes it possible to come to places that we could never come to ourselves, that I could never come to by myself. Um, where more than one is gathered, it's that it's sacred. It really is. I mean, sacred is the perfect word for that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, well,
and
you have
Fred,
been a true woman of wisdom. You have been a inspiration to me in your open-heartedness and your humility. I mean, humility is the thing that Chad's death forced upon me. um, which has been a gift, which this work of Sacred Sorrows couldn't be done without this humility piece, because I know that I have nothing to do with it
yes,
except, say yes and fumble through. But your witness and your testimony to the love of God and how this world of love and mercy and forgiveness works, and you're walking it, and it's not easy. But you're doing it, this surrender, and it's been a gosh, we always say, we're about to say a word and then we're like, oh, we don't want to use that word, right? But I mean, it's been a beautiful thing to witness, but yet I wish I didn't know you, because if I didn't know you, then that means we wouldn't have experienced this,
mhm,
right? But because we have experienced it, I'm so grateful and blessed and privileged to know you. So it's a both and
it
again. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like most
But
things in life.
right, right. So now here you are 12 years later at this incredible spiritual journey you've been on that isn't over.
No,
That is just gonna keep being hard and keep calling you to deeper surrender. Um, but this is exactly where you are now, and it's brought you to this place. And I know you want to share with me where you are with what's just recently happened. So I'd like to, offer you that space now with the letter and anything else you want to share about this
um,
journey.
well, and speaking of the journey, I think like you, we have that in common, and I think all of us have that in common, is the things that we've experienced are the making of us.
Yeah.
Or I should say they can be the making of us if we allow it to be the making of us. And I know that I'm stronger. I have muscles that I never knew I had. I know that I've always been empathetic, but I'm even more empathetic. When I see someone acting like a jerk on the road or in the store or wherever, I always think to myself, I have no idea what happened to them in this today. I have no idea what happened to them in their life. Could they have lost a child? You darn right they could have. Or it could be something else. So and a girlfriend of mine said that to me. She came to visit and I parked funny in a wherever we were, and somebody hollered at me, and she looked at me and she really hit me, and because she said, they have no idea what just happened to you. They have no idea, and they're yelling at you because you parked funny. So I'm so aware of all that kind of stuff because of this. And I really believe in holy moments because I am constantly meeting people who either I can benefit from their experiences or that they can benefit from mine. And it's just every single day, all the time, where they come, or I come. And if we recognize it, and the other thing, here's my other new normal. I know I'm going off just a little, but the other new normal is I don't really know how to do small talk anymore.
I agree.
I will come up there and I'll kind of start, oh yeah, how are you? How are you? And all of a sudden it's like they'll say something and I'll go, really? And then I'll say, yep. And then we'll go bam, deep really fast.
Mhm.
And not everybody's good with that. So
Yeah.
So there'll be some people that kind of go, see ya, don't want
And
to do
that's fine. Like, see ya.
it.
You don't have
Exactly. So
time for things that are not substantial anymore.
yeah, and I think that's it.
Right.
Everything's so much more important. I don't wanna say, and this is not a judgment or
Uh-huh.
not meant to be a judgment in any way for people that don't wanna do that. It's
Mhm.
just that it's just how I am now, and I guess I could manage it. I'm not very good at managing it, though. I just kinda, and it I think my experience also is that people appreciate it
Yes.
because,
Vulnerability and authenticity are very appreciated and needed.
and that's why I think that they get so used to not being able to talk about the really important things because many people don't want to and it's not appropriate or this or that. So when you do and you open the door for that, many people just jump right in. It's like, yeah, let's talk about this thing. So anyway, but again, that's kind of off on something else. So, but he said on here, speaking of he was talking, I'll just read this one paragraph. He said, as to your letter, because the last letter I wrote in my conversation with him, it felt like there was some unfinished business maybe between him and Dom. And
Okay.
I said, I just said, it seems like that might be true. I said, you don't have to tell me about it. It's not about sharing that with me unless you want to, but it's more between you and Dom. Maybe if you haven't looked at it, might be something, that you could do. So he said, as to your letter, when you spoke of unfinished business, you were right, but it's wholly on my end. I have no ill will to Dom. If he needed forgiveness, he would have it. It was shortcomings and actions that caused all of this, mine and mine alone. I don't think, see if I can do this. I don't think there is anything that I could do, no level of insight and understanding or actions and good intentions that can make up for the fact that I murdered your son, Dominic Mower. For that, I feel Dom and I will always have unfinished business. Yes, I can live my life to the best of my ability, but is there truly anything that I could do that would allow me to forgive myself? And he has that underlined, for the damage that I have caused. I don't think I can, but I keep trying to live a life that would make Dom proud. I hope someday he can forgive me. And what I know is that he has. I know he has. I mean, that's totally so I want to see if I can somehow again with God's grace help Michael to forgive himself so that that's how he can live a full life, really. And that will, I don't know, loosen whatever's binding him there, so that's part of what I want to do. So he said, so here we are 12 years later, our day has come around again. I pray for weeks for what to say to you. Nothing ever sounds right in my head. I always feel like I have so much to say, but then always struggle to get them out. And then he's talking about Dominic's place. And I said, he said, I'm glad you're getting closer to finishing Dominic's place. That was a miracle about the fire sprinkler. And that's a whole nother story because we run out of money and this happened. He said, but God, it's cost you so much. I can fathom what you have had to put into that place. I'm sure it's going to be a magical place worthy of the love that you have put in. I was left dumbfounded when you wrote, and I almost didn't put this in. And I just kept feeling like the Holy Spirit was telling me, do it, write it. And I said to him, I can imagine when this is finished, if he does get out on parole, that maybe he could work at Dominic's place. And he said, I was left dumbfounded when you wrote at the end of your last letter that you think about what it would be like if I came to work at Dominic's place. And then he just said, I continue to be taken aback by your forgiveness. He said, I'll admit that would really be like something out of a movie. But I worry what that would do to the rest of your family. Not to presume to know their hearts, but I don't think they have the level of forgiveness for me that you do. I could see that causing them more harm than good. It is a lovely thought, though. And he said, like you, I have given the possibility of getting a parole date over to God. For so long, I have tried not to have hope for that, but people tell me that laws are changing and that I need to be ready. I'll say this, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and if God sees fit to grant me parole, I will be grateful. So it's, you
I
know,
don't think there are any more words than that, Joelle.
yeah,
I
it's incredible, I
yeah,
think.
I think that, I I think that I wanna, first of all, let people know that Dominic's Place is a nonprofit that you started, that is going to help people in the community who are struggling with addiction issues, and sounds like that journey is it's continuing to move forward, so that's amazing. I can also put, like, a link about that on this our page, affiliated with this. We can talk about that after our recording.
Yeah. So
And then
I hope I didn't overshare with that, but it
no, no,
just
no, 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 no,
I
no.
think it gives people an idea of who he was.
Yes.
Well,
No,
they don't know who he was. I'm not gonna talk about who he was, but it gives people an idea who he is now and the power of mercy and forgiveness, what it can do.
right. Well, and I also wanna say, like, that was so powerful what you just shared, that there are, like, no words to explain it because they so stand in this bubble of grace.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I wanna share is, what I'm struck by more than anything is that the forgiveness that you have poured out from your heart and is truly the forgiveness of Christ,
Yes.
is truly a supernatural
Yep.
forgiveness, and it is wrapped in the mystery of grace, and this is profound,
Mm.
and I thank you for sharing your story and for being willing to say yes to what God has put in front of you, and to walk this journey that you didn't want, and to walk it in grace. And you're you're an amazing woman of God, and I just want to thank you for your time today and your yes to this really heavy cross, and the way that you're carrying it, and then how you have embraced it, and how this cross has turned. There's this saying of, like, embracing the cross and it turns sweet, and I know a lot of people don't understand that, but I know that you do. I know what it's like to carry the cross into this place that becomes this sorrowful sweetness.
Mhm.
So, thank you, Joelle.
You're welcome. It's, it's not something that I have the opportunity to share very often and with very many people.
Right.
Um, so I really appreciate the opportunity um, to just, like you said, witness to the power of forgiveness and how what, because I was able to say yes, how it's affected so many people in such wonderful ways.
Thanks. And I'm gonna, um, close. And for the people that are watching, thank you for journeying on this conversation with us. I know that it will bless you, even if it's a difficult message. Joelle and I will be praying for you and every single one of you that is watching and that has journeyed through this conversation. You keep the faith and stay strong.